Welcome back to our special on the power of pride, 50 years of struggle. It's been 10 years since the infamous Atlanta Eagle raid. The illegal bus struck at the core of the Fourth Amendment, but what followed impacted not only the pride community, but the entire state.
I pronounce you married.
10 years ago, same-sex marriage was illegal in Georgia. You couldn't openly serve in the military. But walking into the Atlanta Eagle, it didn't matter who you were.
I mean, I have people in here in a three-piece suit all the way down to, full leather. It doesn't matter how you want to dress. It's a place that you can come and be yourself and not be judged. It's 100+ years old.
Richard Ramey, once a regular at the bar, has owned it for the last 22 years. This year marks the 10-year anniversary of the infamous illegal police raid that left the LGBTQ community bruised and customers scared to go back.
Yes, this looks really bad. Yes, this should have never happened. We can't just all run back into the closet and hide. We've got to make a stand.
Now, no one thinks twice about using their cell phone to capture interactions with police, says attorney Dan Grossman, who represents the Eagle.
And so one of the first things they did was take people's cell phones or kick their cell phones away because they didn't want any video of this nasty stuff that they were about to do.
The violation of their rights so egregious, the events after the raid made it illegal for an officer to interfere with the public's right to videotape or even photograph police activity.
People think about it as a gay issue, which to an extent it certainly was, right? But people don't realize what important reforms we got for everyone in Atlanta.
On a September weeknight in 2009, the infamous Atlanta Police Red Dog unit stormed into the Eagle, some of them wearing masks, on a complaint alleging illicit sex and drugs. The now disbanded group was a drug unit known for its aggressive tactics.
This type of unlawful raid was something that the Atlanta police had been doing primarily to black establishments for a while, and nobody ever really challenged it. And I think they got this idea that if we pick on some kind of a vulnerable community, we'll get away with it.
Officers shouted gay slurs and forced some 60 customers and staff to lie face down on the beer-stained floor, then illegally searched each person without serving any warrants.
There were people, old people in their 50s and 60s and 70s, just being shoved to the ground, thrown on the ground, people with hip conditions.
Nothing illegal was ever found, but 8 employees were charged with failing to have a city permit.
In fact, when they got to jail, they had no bond because there was no such crime. So they couldn't set a bond to something they never heard of.
Ramey was off that night when his phone rang about 9:30.
What in the world could have happened that would create such a force, a show of force from my bar?
It took 3 years and a federal ruling before the city complied with the $1 million settlement to the Eagle and 24 plaintiffs. Several officers were fired or faced disciplinary actions.
As a result of our court order, Atlanta police officers are now trained every 2 years on Fourth Amendment issues such as when you can stop someone, search someone, frisk someone, arrest someone.
Atlanta officers are also required to wear name tags and give their names if asked.
And that's a really important part of police accountability, right? If you have a bad interaction with a police officer, you now can go and say, it was John Smith, and then they can investigate.
Ramey says he holds no hard feelings against the Atlanta Police Department, and he's satisfied with the outcome.
We started having a relationship and we started having dialogue. Well, that was a horrible night, but I think that night strengthened our police force. I think it educated some of them that didn't even know some of the things that they've learned through the years. I think that night has enlightened a lot of things in our city.
A federal court judge ordered the Atlanta Police Department to implement reforms. Although the department was slow to comply, it eventually did. One result? 2 LGBTQ liaisons who make sure the pride community is treated fairly and has a voice within law enforcement. CBS 46's Daniel Wilkerson shows us how it's making a difference.
We've grown from 3 officers to now about 30 walking in the Pride Parade.
Senior police officer Eric King says he feels like a rock star marching down 10th Street during Atlanta's Pride Parade.
It is an amazing feeling to be treated or to feel the love from the community and to be appreciated.
King served as the department's LGBTQ liaison for 4 years, leading sensitivity training for officers, facilitating community forums, and connecting people to LGBTQ resources. Ensuring new officers know how to appropriately interact and identify with the trans population has been a renewed focus.
If their gender marker is different than the way they present, what does that look like? How to be respectful, and just basically how to communicate with individuals on why we do some of the things we do.
Cops weren't always a welcome sight in the Pride community, where they were criminalized and harassed by law enforcement for years.
I remember the police would come in and they would like stand at the front of the bar at the entrance, and they would sort of, loom there.
LGBTQ historian Dave Hayward.
We basically saw the police as the enemy. We didn't see them as our friends.
The Atlanta Eagle Raid and previous events forced the department to form relationships with the LGBTQ community, which King says shows progress. King was a recruit when police illegally raided the popular gay bar using derogatory slurs.
Atlanta Police Department turned a mistake that we made into a positive. And now we have 2 LGBT liaisons, right? I'm here because of the Eagle. So I think out of kind of the ashes, this was created. There are policies that have been implemented so that, or let's say checks and balances, via policies that have been implemented so that this doesn't happen again.
King says initially it's hard for people to see past his uniform, but he has an icebreaker.
This is my added touch, and they go, "You gay?" And I'm like, "Yes, I'm Officer King, I'm the LGBTQ liaison." And they're like, "Oh, you have one of those?" And that's essentially how a friendship starts.
For CBS 46 News, I'm Daniel Wilkerson.
Over the decades, there have been several media outlets to connect the Pride community, but one has stood the test of time and continues to give the Pride community a voice. That story when we come back.